Hi there. Welcome to the fifth part of my series, The Down and Dirty Truths About Chronic Lyme Disease. Today, I'm going to talk about the whole process when starting Lyme treatment. And in fact, whenever you add anything into your treatment, of this Herxheimer reaction concept. So the basic thing to know is when you start treatment, things are likely to get worse before they get better. Okay. It's part of the journey, and there are things that you can do to modify it. But let me just tell you first the background. So the Herxheimer reaction is based on the fact that when we start killing off bacteria in the body, they release toxins. The bacteria release toxins, and then those toxins become your problem, right? Those toxins are then need to be processed and escorted from the body by your detoxification systems. So this happens, it can happen with ozone therapy, it can happen with high-dose vitamin C, it can happen with herbal antimicrobials, it can happen with rifing, it can happen with antibiotics. Now, so this is not a thing that's specific to antibiotic therapy. It can happen with all different kinds of therapies. I've even had patients where I put them on biofilm breakers to get the bugs to break down the sticky goo that the bugs can hide in. And they get another sort of layer of Herx reaction because we're exposing more bacteria that then they can be killed off and then release those toxins, and then their body's trying to detox that. Okay. So this Herxheimer reaction, or we call it a Herx reaction, typically happens in the earlier days of treatment, but it can happen down the road when we're doing something new or adding something different. And basically, things feel worse before they get better. And Herx reaction symptoms typically are your typical symptoms, but worse. It's like you just feel like all your stuff is flared up, as opposed to brand new symptoms or feelings that aren't familiar to you. So for example, when you start, this happens more with antibiotics and herbs, but it can be with anything, but let's just use antibiotics as an example. If you start an antibiotic and you feel crappy, how do you know if it's the effect of the antibiotic, like side effects, or if you're feeling crappy because you're having a Herx reaction? Sometimes it's a little fuzzy and it can be hard to tell, but I'll give you the two things I look for to try and distinguish between those two things. The first one is how quickly does it happen? Okay. Typically, a side effect is going to happen right away, or an allergic reaction will happen right away. Whereas Herx reactions typically take a little bit of time to come on. So that may be a few days. I've actually had some patients who are doing a medication called bicillin that sort of start herxing at the end of the first month. But Herx reactions typically take a little while to build, right? Because you're killing off these bacteria, they're releasing toxins, your body's like doing okay with that for a while, and then it's not, and then you're like, oh, shit. So Herx reactions can take a little bit longer to show themselves, to manifest. Negative, like allergic reactions to antibiotics or side effects tend to be more immediate. Okay, so that's part one. Mind you, I had a patient email me a couple of days ago who got some IV Rocephin and was herxing within a few hours, which is possible. It is possible. But just general rules of thumb. The second way I tend to look for is it your familiar symptoms worse, or is it new? Okay, so again, there are times that herxing can produce newer symptoms, but 95% of the time, it's all the laundry list of stuff that people regularly experience, just on steroids, just exacerbated. And that is an indicator to me that a Herx reaction is happening. A couple of other myths about Herx reactions. One, you don't have to have them to get well. So a lot of Herx reactions come down to how well that person detoxifies, right? And we're all different in terms of our genetics, in terms of the load on our body, toxin loads, other things. Is there mold? Is there heavy metals? Like there's so many things that play into that. Are we doing saunas? Are we sweating? Are we drinking plenty of water? Like all the different things that play into our ability to detoxify. And that's individual for every single person. But, so if somebody doesn't have a Herx reaction, but starts getting well, then great. Yay. I mean, that's the ideal, right? To not have to go through the flare and to get the improvement. Yay. Sometimes my patients come back to me bummed. They're like, I didn't have a Herx reaction. And I'm like, but you're feeling better? And they're like, And I'm like, well, great. Like, yay. So don't think because you don't have a Herx reaction, nothing happened. So long as you're getting well, it just might mean that your body is like detoxing well and that you're kind of just a little bit stronger constitutionally. Because a lot of my patients have been worn down from years of illness and inflammation and toxicity and all this stuff. So one is a Herx is not like, it's not required. The second thing is, if you have a bad Herx reaction, it's not a badge of honor to soldier through it. Okay. So I am going to give you guys a link to my Herxheimer handout that gives some ideas and strategies for coping with Herx reactions, but also has a scale of 1 to 10. Like if you're experiencing a Herxheimer reaction and you're feeling like you're at a 9 with your symptoms or an 8, then I would be backing off whatever it was you just changed or added or whatever, and maybe going at it again, like letting the dust settle, going at it again a little bit more gradually. But if you're at an 8 or a 9, pushing through is not going to be good for your body in the long run. And it may actually take more time because then you've got to backpedal further. Okay, so if you're at a 6 or a 7, it's not fun, you're not comfortable, it's like yuck. But you're capping out at a 7, then the strategy might be either to lower the dose a little bit, but not give up entirely, and or increase your detox helpers, right? Are you taking binders? Do you have glutathione? Do you have detox herbs? Do you do Epsom salt spas? Do you have infrared sauna? Are you doing coffee enemas? Like all the things. So there are a lot of detox strategies, and you'll find these in my Herx handout, that can help reduce and be able to get you through, right? And then if you're like a 3, 4, maybe a 5, and you're like, all right, okay, I can do this, then you soldier on. That's fine. That's fine. But don't feel like you have to feel like you're absolutely near death and just be able to push on through, because there are some doctors that promote that. There are some doctors that will like say, you've got to keep going. You've got to push through. This is the way it is. You've just tough love. You've just got to keep going. And that can actually be kind of dangerous for the body. I guess it could be, but just bloody unpleasant. Like, ugh, don't want to have to do that. So there are things you can do. Always, 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 of course, be in touch with your providing doctor, your health practitioner, because they will be the one to guide you. But when my folks come to me and say, okay, this is what's happening, that's kind of the scale I use to gauge how to respond to them, right? So general rules of thumb there. So Herxheimer reactions, basically, it's a worse before better. It typically feels like your existing symptoms, but worse. It can take a while to come on after you add, start, increase dose, whatever the case may be, whatever triggered it. And they can be unpleasant. Here's what I would suggest. I would suggest looking at how your mindset is around it. Okay. So mindset is everything. I think one of the important things with Herx reactions is knowing what they are. So you expect that might be coming, not in a doom and gloom way, but just be like, oh, I'm feeling a bit worse. Oh, maybe this is a Herx reaction. I know what this is. I find for my patients, if they know and understand the process, it's so much easier. Then, they have a new protocol, they go home, they start this, and then, shit hits the fan and they're like, oh my God, what is happening? Like, what is going on here? So just having that understanding of the process and that, that expectation, but that possibility, right? There's a possibility that this might come along. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but it's a possibility. And just having the education to know, like, okay, I recognize this. I'm not going to freak out because I know what's happening here. And, if you need guidance, go back to your practitioner, be like, okay, what should I do? This is happening. What should I do? But always also follow your own intuition. So if you're feeling like, wow, this is too much, I need to back off, then you ultimately get to make that choice, right? One thing I always tell my patients, like, they will never, ever, a couple of things that I can provide for them, right? That they haven't necessarily got elsewhere. This could be another whole video. Firstly, I will never tell them they're crazy. They'll go, I've got this thing I want to tell you. I think you're going to think I'm crazy. No, I will never think you're crazy, and I will never tell you that you're crazy, because I know what Lyme can do. I know all the weird shit that it does, right? So nothing surprises me anymore. So that's the first one. I will also never, this is my promise, get anyone in trouble for not doing their protocol like we had planned it. Or if they felt like they needed a break, or their body was saying, I can't keep up with this. I need to slow it down, right? I'm the guide. At the end of the day, my patient, that's their body, it's their soul. They get to make the ultimate decisions. And so I will always support if a patient feels like, oh, this is like getting too much. I need to back off, or I need to be able to function and pick up my kids from school and work or do whatever I have to do in my life, right? So please, if you're not with a practitioner that, well, let me reverse. If you are with a practitioner that gets you in trouble, then please find another practitioner, because you guys have been through enough already without being in trouble for these kinds of things. So Herxheimer reaction, some patients love it. Some patients are like, oh, wow, this is working. I'm really happy, because maybe they've gone through some treatments that haven't done anything, better or worse. And so then they're like, oh, I feel it. Like something is happening. This is great. Right? So it's not all bad. It's just a question of perspective. Oh, so the last thing before we wrap up, I started saying about mindset, right? So the understanding and the knowledge of the process is very, very helpful. But then just like whatever the thought process is, train yourself to be positive about it. Right? Don't let those negative thoughts of like, oh my gosh, I'm getting worse. Oh gosh, what's happening? Oh my gosh, I'm going downhill. Oh, this is terrible. I'm never going to get through this. Like blah, blah, blah. That negative cycle. Don't let yourself do that. All right. Give yourself 5 minutes in the morning to like really kind of wallow if you need to wallow. But then please, 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 and I'm going to be like teaching so much on mindset in the coming months and years. Please catch those thoughts and reframe them. Okay. Yes, I'm feeling more flared up. Look, my Lyme treatment is working. Think about how many bacteria I must be killing off, that the releasing toxins that I'm going to clear, because my body has the intimate wisdom and ability. Right? Frame it as a positive. My treatment is working. This medication is effective for me. I'm killing off a lot of bacteria right now. Okay. Please, your mindset is everything. Like how you think affects everything. All right. So yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about Herx reactions. So I will see you again in the next video.